So let's say we have, I'm just going to draw two lines here at 90-degree angle. So I've got two lines here, and these lines meet, and we want to round this edge. Say we want to round it to a radius of 0.5. So in the past, for us to do that, we'd first draw a circle. We'd make that circle the radius of 0.5. We would select our circle, move it, grab a point here, snap it to this line, grab this point here, and then snap it down to this line. So now my circle touches both lines perfectly. Then we got to go through and trim. Spell trim here. And we'd click on all the lines that we want to get rid of. There, now we have a nice rounded edge. Obviously, there must be a better way than that because that was quite a few steps. So, we're going to introduce the fillet command. A lot of people think that it's pronounced fillet, like fillet of fish, because that is how it's spelled, but it's not. It's pronounced fillet because it's not French. So what we do is, again, we have our two lines here that come to a point. We type our fillet command, which the shortcut is just F, but fully typed out is F-I-L-L-E-T, fillet. And then looking at our command bar here at the bottom, it's asking us to select our first line, and it gives us a number of options. And then also right above that, we notice that our radius is set to 0. So the first thing we need to do is we need to let it know the radius of this arc that we want to put in here, which we know is 0.5. So we hit R. I can either click on this for radius, or you'll notice the R is uppercase, so that means I can just hit R and enter for radius. We did a radius of 0.5, so I'm going to put 0.5. And then now I just click on my two lines. And it rounds it that easily. Big time saver, huh?
See, you guys don't pay attention.
Now, let's say we've got a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a rectangle here. And say we want to round all of these edges here to 0.5. So I can run my fillet command again. So I'm just hitting F and enter. It's already, my radius, it remembers whatever your last setting was. So it's already set to 0.5. And this time for options here, I'm going to select P for Polyline. So I'll put P, enter. And now all I need to do is click on my rectangle, and it's going to round all of the edges.
Mine just rounded once.
Did you draw a rectangle using the rectangle tool or the line tool?
The rectangle.
Did you hit P for... So I'll demonstrate that one more time. I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to hit F for fillet and enter. I'm going to confirm that my radius is set correctly. So right now it's set to 0.5, so I want to change it. So I'm going to hit R and enter. And instead of 0.5, I'll go half that, so I'll go 0.25. Now I hit P for polylines. This is the key step here. So I'm going P and then enter. Now you can see it's asking me to select a 2D polyline. So I'm going to select my polyline, which in this case is the entire rectangle, and it should round all the edges. Did it work that time for you? All right. So one thing that's kind of unique with CAD, which can be confusing at first, is let's say I have, try that again. So I'm just using my line tool, and I'm going to draw a square. So I just drew a simple square using my line tool. Now I'm going to draw an identical square next to it, but here I'm going to use my Polyline tool. So even though both these squares look identical to us, CAD looks at them as completely different objects. It looks at this square on the right as one object, whereas it looks at this on the left here as basically just 4 lines. And the fact that these lines happen to touch and make a square, CAD can't even really differentiate. So if I were to, if I wanted to move this square here, I could just click on it and then easily move it. This one, I can't. If I try to move it, it's only going to move the object that I click on, in which case is just this one line here. So you need to be aware of that because sometimes we need to draw complex shapes that we want to have as one object, but still out of lines. So what CAD came up with is something called a polyline. So you'll notice right to the right of our line tool is Polyline. So we're going to click on that. And Polyline acts just like our line tool in that we can just draw a bunch of lines. So I'm going to draw just kind of a random shape. And then I'll hit enter to let it know that I'm done. But what's unique about this is CAD now looks at this as one object. So when I click anywhere on it, it's automatically going to select the entire object. So this is what they call a polyline, which is kind of cool because now let's say I want to round all the edges. I can do my fillet command, hit P for polyline, click on it, and I've rounded every single one of my edges to that radius. So huge, huge time saver there. Then one other thing you need to know about Polyline is you can close your shape. So say I'm drawing a shape here, and then I want to close this shape back to my beginning point. You'll notice in our command line here at the bottom, there's an option for close. So I'm going to hit C for close, hit enter, and now this entire object is closed. So when I click on it, it clicks the entire object. And then if I try to round it, this time I'll do a radius of say 0.5. It's going to round all my corners at once. One other thing you need to know about Fillet is you can do it even with lines that don't touch. So here I have kind of 3 random lines. I'm going to run my fillet here, and then I'm going to select this line here and this line here. Rounds that. Now I'm going to select this line here and this line here. Oops. After I run my fillet command again. Oops. I can select this line here and this line here. And in order to round it, it had to, since my radius was so small, I had to put it way over here. Kind of a bad example. Let me change my radius to a smaller size. Now I'll click these two. There we go. So it automatically trimmed away my excess, calculated the exact points of where this needs to go to round perfectly. Give me nice round edges. Okay, any questions on either layers, the fillet command, or drawing polylines using the polyline tool? You want to go over polyline again? Okay. So first we'll draw just a square using our line tool. So to us, this just looks like a square. But in reality, it's 4 lines. I can click on a line and I can just delete it. So these are basically 4 separate objects. To us, it's a square. To CAD, it's just 4 lines, and it is basically even unaware of the fact that they actually touch. So because of that, if I go to use our Fillet command and say I want to round all of these edges, if I try to use my Polyline tool, it's not going to let me do it because it's not a 2-dimensional object. These are just 1-dimensional objects. So what I'd have to do in that case is go and click on each one individually, run my Fillet command again, click on this, click on this. So just a lot of extra steps. Running the Polyline tool, let me just zoom out here. So Polyline, which is right next to our line tool. It's also the P-line command, so there's line and P-line. This acts just like our line tool, except when we're done drawing our shape, CAD's going to look at it as one complete object.
So it won't work in square, right? Like in line?
In line, you cannot. Line will not create one complete object. It just creates individual lines. So this creates individual lines, but then keeps them joined together as one selectable object. And this is going to become more important later on. But for now, it's just important for you to know that these are. And if you had something that was a really complex shape and you need to move it, it's nice to just be able to click on it once, select it, and then easily move it. Whereas if things are individual lines, you would potentially have to move them all individually, or it just saves you the step of having to select the whole thing, which if you had complex drawings and layers over layers over layers, it could be very, very time consuming to go through and select all the lines of an object. Okay, and the shortcut for the Polyline or P-line command is just PL. So you have L for line, PL for Polyline. And for the Polyline assignment, you'll notice I give you kind of a very complex shape here. If you use the P-line command, all you have to do is do your fillet, set your radius, select Polyline, click on it, and it's going to round every single one of these edges for you. If you used your line tool to draw this, then you'll have to go through and round every single one of these edges, which would be quite time consuming. So that's why I give you a reminder here. Use your Polyline, close your object, and then when you use your Fillet command, use that Polyline option and round all your edges at the same time. Okay, any other questions on Fillet, Polyline, or working with layers? Very good.